Yes, it's Tales from the Jails. John G. Sutton. I'm going to talk today about sex offenders at the prisons I worked at, specifically at Strangeways. Now, at Strangeways, they had a separate landing for the sex offenders. That was C1 landing. C1 landing had three ordinary landings. The C2, C3 and C4 were standard occupants. That's just people who were in the prison system. They were generally kept C2, C3, C4. C1, you see, there was a floor, a false floor built in to C wing, and underneath it, out of the sight and sound of all the other inmates, that was C1 landing, and that contained the cells that were used specifically for inmates on what was known as Rule 43. Rule 43, you could apply to be on Rule 43 for protection if you felt that that you were under threat from other inmates. Of course, the problem with being on protection basically was that you were segregated from the rest of the prison, so there was really basically no work for Rule 43s. They couldn't work in the library, they couldn't work in the kitchens, and they were basically kept completely separate from the rest of the prison. The reason being, of course, that sex offenders were regularly, if the standard inmates seemed to think there was some kind of heavenly reward that they would receive for administering a beating or assaulting a sex offender inmate. Absolutely no such thing. It's an offence, and regularly inmates will be charged for attacking sex offenders. Some staff used to let them know, if you say you get a sex offender coming in to Strangeways and they'd been molesting little boys, say, as soon as the staff knew, guaranteed one of the staff would tip the red band off. That's the cleaner on the landing, and say, you've got a nonce case. A nonce case, that's another name for sex offenders. Yeah, they call them nonces, you see. And that they would tip the red band off, and the word would get round, and there'd be some hero amongst the prisoners who wanted to be, I got that bastard, I'd beat him up in the favourite place for administering beatings was the recess. Now the recess was set, it was where the cells had been knocked out, and the cells, the recess was in to the depth of a cell, probably 2 cells wide. It contained a standard water closet, WC toilet, a slop basin for pouring down your slops down, and a urinal, yeah, as well. So the inmates during slop out and bang up, because in them days there had no sanitation in the prison cells, no electricity in the prison cells, no radio. They had a radio, but a battery, a PP9 battery run the radios, but they certainly had no televisions or anything like that. They had one television, usually on the ones. Just give me a second. Goodness me, it's the hay fever, very bad today here. My dear wife Mary has been sneezing. She says it's the hay fever. It is. Anyway, so the prisons did have televisions, but usually only on the ones, and the inmates would be sat out like they were in a cinema watching this, but basically Rule 43s had no such facilities, and they were kept in this unit on C1 landing. I used to work on there, not on a regular basis, on an irregular basis, and one of the problems with that landing was that there were probably about 60 Rule 43s just on that one landing, and they were entitled, if they were appealing their sentence, and they were appealing against their conviction, they were allowed the case files, and their case files would include photographs of their victims. And what was happening on C1 landing was the inmates were swapping pictures of their victims, so they weren't exactly repenting their sins, so to speak. They were not. What they were doing was swapping them round, so it was usually like a form of pornography. And some of the offences were quite horrendous. At Wormwood Scrubs, there was one particular sex offender who had been putting syrup on his erect penis and getting little babies to suck the syrup off. Seriously. Oh, now that is a perversion, isn't it? Yeah. I mean, and of course there were people on there who'd been molesting little boys. There was one particularly obnoxious sex offender at the Scrubs who'd been a major in the army, and when he came out he got himself a job managing a home for disabled children with quadriplegics, in wheelchairs. And basically what he'd been doing was he'd been interfering with the children who were trapped in the wheelchairs, 8, 9 years old children, because they could speak, but they couldn't move, you see, because they were trapped in the wheelchairs. He ended up in the Scrubs. I believe he got a number of beatings before he applied for Rule 43, because he thought he was a fairly tough guy. The problem is you can be a big tough guy, but you're going to get it in the end if that's what you've been doing, and it gets out. And as I say, the staff, I personally didn't do that myself, because I'm not a great believer in violence like that. I would definitely defend myself, but as for going out taking some pleasure in beating somebody up, I wouldn't see that there'd be any use for that. Some staff did seem to do it, usually after they'd been in the club at dinner time, tanked up. And there were certain inmates that were used as hitmen by the staff, like torpedoes, sent in to give other inmates beatings. Quite what pleasure the staff got out of that, I don't know. But they did do it. I intervened on one occasion, and the senior officer that had sent this man said, listen, he said, if I send him out to do a job, he said, you don't get in the way. Thought, really? I'm going to stand by and watch an inmate get beaten. I mean, once you start administering thumps like that, once you start putting it in, you don't know what your victim's going to react. I mean, you could hit them too hard and kill them. Be very careful when administering violence. That's why you put them in like wrestling holds. You wouldn't actually chin them, or stuck the nut on them, although I did once or twice. I mean, if they come running at you, what are you going to do? I mean, you can't just say, spin him round and get him holding in a nice little wrestling hold. No, you can't do that. They come running at you, bang, you put your head in. And that's what I did. It seemed to work anyway. They didn't usually come back. Anyway, Rule 43s, C1, and it was dead easy working with them. I mean, you'd open all the cells up, give them 10 minutes to do their ablutions, use the toilet facilities and what have you. Then all I used to do was stand in the middle of C1 landing and shout, get in your cells! Gone. All gone in the cells. And they locked themselves in, because they knew if they didn't, no more Rule 43. Yeah. Anyway, that's a little story about what happened to Rule 43s in Strange Ways. And of course, during the Strange Ways riot, when the staff I don't know how they managed to do that, give the keys away and run out the prison. That's not Strangeways staff. That's not the staff that I knew when I worked there. They'd fight, yeah, but they wouldn't throw the keys in. And I don't care if there were 200 inmates in the chapel that day. They still got 200 officers, yeah, on duty. They could get steam in there and give it a go. You wouldn't throw your keys in, which they did, and they used the keys. The inmates then charged down to C1 landing and opened up the sex offenders and gave them some serious beatings. Right, I'm going to now, and there's people here been complaining, so I've invited one of my friends here today to join me in a little sing-song. This is Johnny Boy. Johnny Boy, yeah? He's a bit of a dickhead, though. I'll show you. Here he is, yeah? See that? Yeah? That's Johnny Boy. How you doing, Johnny Boy? Fuck off, you old fat bastard. Hey, what did you say? I don't like that. Anyway, he's got a funny nose, don't you think? Yeah. Johnny, he sits on my shelf above my desk here to remind me what's going to happen. Yeah, I think there's something wrong with your snot box, mate. Anyway, there we go. That's Johnny Boy. And here we go. I'm going to now personally take great pleasure in emasculating this song, which is from Down Under, by the way, and I'm sure you all know it. I'd like you to join in, yeah? Please do, yeah? And leave me a nice comment. And hey, please subscribe and like my videos, you know, because it does help, I believe. Anyway, I'm going to sing it to you now. It's not singing, I know. Once a jolly swagman camped by a billabong under the shade of a coolabah tree, and he sang as he watched and waited while his billy boiled. Who'll come a waltzing Matilda with me? Waltzing Matilda, waltzing Matilda, who'll come a waltzing Matilda with me? And he sang as he watched and waited till his belly boiled. Who'll come a waltzing Matilda with me? Along came a jumbuck to drink at the billabong. Up jumped the swagman and grabbed him with glee, and he sang as he stowed that jumbuck in his tucker bag. You'll come a waltzing Matilda with me. Waltzing Matilda, waltzing Matilda, who'll come a waltzing Matilda with me? And he sang as he watched and waited till his billy boiled. Who'll come a waltzing Matilda with me? Up rolled the squatter, mouthed on his Sarah bread. Down came the troopers, 1, 2, 3. Whose is that jumbuck you've got in your tucker bag? You'll come a waltzing Matilda with me. Waltzing Matilda, waltzing Matilda, you'll come a waltzing Matilda with me. And he sang as he watched and waited till his billy boiled. Oh, come a waltzing Matilda with me. Up jumped the swagman, leapt into the billabong. You'll never catch me alive, said he, and his ghost may be heard as you pass by the billabong. Oh, come a waltzing Matilda with me. Waltzing Matilda, waltzing Matilda, who'll come a waltzing Matilda with me? And he sang as he watched and waited till his billy boiled. Who'll come a waltzing Matilda with me? Right, a swagman. Yeah, what is a swagman? It's a hobo, an itinerant worker who travelled from place to place in Australia, of course. Yeah, and the swagmen were usually poor. A billabong is a water hole or a pond, yeah? a coolabah tree, a eucalyptus tree actually, and that grows near water. A billy is a tin can, yeah, and a jumbuck's a sheep, yeah. So when he picked up the jumbuck and shoved it in his tucker bag, which is the bag he carries on his back, yeah, that the jumbuck's a sheep, yeah. Now, when it says the squatter came up, that's the landowner, and he's on a thoroughbred horse, you see. So the landlord of the land came up and called in the troopers, and the troopers were like the police, you know, and they were trying to arrest the swagman. The swagman said, "You're not going to take me alive," and he jumped into the billabong where he drowned. And that's the story of Waltzing Matilda, which I thoroughly hope you enjoyed. And do you want to say goodbye to Johnny Boy? Johnny Boy, what did you think of the song? What do you think of the song, Johnny Boy? Bloody rubbish. Woo! There you go, folks. We have a verdict. Tales from the jail.